agendized items, administrative report, minutes approval of the prior meeting, and action items. A roll call vote will be taken after each item's motion. The liaison will call each board member's name to indicate the desired vote for that item. After the vote has been counted, the liaison may read out the final vote. Citizens wishing to speak during public comment time or to speak specifically on an agenda item may fill out a blue request to speak card, and I do have a couple of those, to the staff table before the agenda item is to be discussed. Citizens interested in submitting a written comment on any item may submit a yellow written comments in person to the staff table prior to the beginning of the public testimony. When called, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and then begin speaking. Groups wishing to speak should elect a spokesperson to represent the views of the group. To facilitate the meeting, your comments will be limited to 3 minutes for individual speakers, with 1 additional minute for each additional individual present at the meeting who has contributed their time to a representative speaker, up to a total of 10 minutes. I remind our audience that the board review relates to design matters and does not include consideration of existing zoning district designations, zoning entitlements, or the allowed uses within the zoning districts. The board's motions may be to approve with modified stipulations, to deny the request, or continue the case. Thank you for your interest and time. We will now begin the meeting with the roll call.
Councilwoman Janik?
Present.
Vice Chair Joyner?
Present.
Board Member Brand?
Here.
Board Member Pieser?
Here.
Board Member Faki?
Here.
Board Member Mason?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Present.
All present. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, non-agendized items. Citizens may address the members of the Development Review Board during public comment. Public comment time is reserved at the beginning of the meeting for citizens to comment on non-agendized items that are within the Development Review Board's jurisdiction and is limited to a total of 15 minutes. Arizona law prohibits the Development Review Board from discussing or taking any action on these non-agendized items. Speakers may submit a blue request to speak card in person prior to the beginning of the meeting. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. Written comment is also being accepted for non-agendized items and may be submitted in person at the hearing or electronically at the Development Review Board website. Written comments submitted electronically will be emailed to the Development Review members. We'll start with the administrative report.
Thank you, Councilwoman Janik, and I want to welcome you and Commissioner Gonzalez back to the board for your 3-month rotations. We appreciate you joining us. I don't have any additional items for today, but I will note that we are anticipating meeting again in 2 weeks on the 21st to review at least 1 item for that agenda.
Thank you.
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to the minutes. Approval of the February 1st, 2024 Development Review Board regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve the regular meeting minutes of the February 1st, 2024 Development Review Board meeting as presented.
Second? Thank you.
Councilwoman Janik?
Yes.
Vice Chair Joyner?
Yes.
Board Member Brand?
Yes.
Board Member Pieser?
Yes.
Board Member Faki?
Yes.
Board Member Mason?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Minutes approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Action items, how the action agenda works. The Development Review Board may take 1 vote to act on all items on the continuance agenda and/or consent agenda, or may remove individual items for further discussion as appropriate. The Development Review Board takes separate action on each item on the regular agenda. Persons interested in speaking on any agenda item may submit a blue request to speak card in person prior to the beginning of the public testimony. Those wishing to speak are customarily given 3 minutes. Additional times may be granted to designated speaker representing 2 or more persons. Please submit cards together. Persons interested in submitting a written comment on any item may submit a yellow written comments card in person prior to the beginning of the public testimony, or may submit electronically at the Development Review Board website no later than 90 minutes before the meeting. So let's move on to the consent agenda. Do I hear any request to either gather information on the item or move it to regular agenda?
Yes.
Okay, Jeff?
Councilwoman Janik, I'd like to separate item number 4, 8-DR-2022, as a separate approval item, so that I've got a few questions regarding phasing and existing versus proposed on that project.
Okay, thank you. So item number 4 will be moved to the regular agenda for presentation. Any other items?
I had a question on item number 1 about the amount of shading on part of the building. That's the Taco Bell.
Okay, so it's actually number 3, Taco Bell.
Yes, right. Yes, that's correct.
Do we have a representative to answer that? Okay. I guess could you please approach the podium and answer the questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My question concerns the use of shading. Looking at the design that you show for the western elevation, you have shading over what essentially is the eastern portion of, I guess, the southern portion of the entrance.
Right.
The northern portion, where you have a large entrance where you intend people to come in and looks like have electronic sign-up features, and your patio are unprotected from the western sun. And my concern is, in your evaluations of this, have you thought about the possibility that this, first of all, is going to cause a decrease in traffic through these doors because it will get very hot, and it'll cause a decrease in use of the patio? Has that been thought of and addressed in your design feature?
My name is Josh Graber. I'm with GPD Group, the A&E firm for this project. Address is 1801 Watermark Drive in Columbus, Ohio. We gave thought to that insofar as we iterated from the standard Kitchen X design of this building. So it's been an iterative process from the beginning where we submitted what Taco Bell preferred from a brand standard, and we added elements, changed elements as DRB commented on them. As far as the shading on that western side, we added louvers to the top portion for the shade per DRB. Taco Bell's brand standard is to maintain that tombstone element that you see, that arch above that door, to act as a portal to the entry door. That is the primary entry door of the building. The other door is the egress door from the seating. So really, from Taco Bell's perspective, that element sort of harkens back to their overall design from the beginning. They've had that tombstone element in their buildings from the start of their designs back in when they started building these. So it's really a critical design element for them. So in order to maintain that architecturally, which is why we show that portal as is. As far as, is the primary issue the material of the door handle perhaps, or is it the door itself?
The concern I had is that you're going to have a shaded entrance area, which is probably attract people going into your egress or your ingress door.
Right.
Because it's going to be perceived as being hot. So you're going to have certain materials, automatic door handles, or extra shading on the windows to ensure you don't have that. And that would be my concern. And the other concern was on the patio, which is a nice patio, but in the afternoon sun, no one's going to be there. So that was another question I had on that. I don't have any other problem with that. I don't have any problem with the tombstone look, but that was my concern. I didn't know if Taco Bell, design standard says you can't do that or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were hoping for. So I guess it would be an operations thing when we got to it. Again, we iterated just per the DRB approval and had architecture as the primary focus on that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any other comments on that? Do we want to make a motion of any kind?
No, I'm satisfied.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other comments on any of the other consent agenda items?
No, but I'll make a motion.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to move to approve cases, agenda items 3, 5, 6, and 7, which are cases 5-DR 2018, case 2-PP 2023, case 35-DR 2023, and case 2-DR 2024, per the staff recommended stipulations after finding that the development applications meet the applicable Development Review Board criteria.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we need to do a roll call.
Councilwoman Janik,
Yes.
Vice Chair Joyner,
Yes.
Board Member Brand,
Yes.
Board Member Peaser,
Yes.
Board Member Faki,
Yes.
Board Member Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with item number 4, and I believe we have a presentation from the city
Yes, thank you.
as well as from the team representing the church. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilwoman Janik, Board Member Brand. Just curious, did you want a full presentation from staff, or did you just want to jump to your phasing questions with the applicant, whichever you prefer?
I'm not sure that, I think that Commissioner Gonzalez also had questions on this. My specific questions on this were regarding trying to understand exactly what is existing and proposed as new construction, and there's also an overlay of a phased construction on this site, and I didn't think that the package and documents that I got was easy to sort of go through and understand, both from a plan, elevation, and perspective, like what was Phase 1 existing and proposed.
Sure, so the applicant has prepared some
But
exhibits.
that was the specific, I don't know if there's something specific about.
Commissioner Gonzalez also had questions.
I'd like to see the full presentation on it, only because I have reviewed this, this application before, and I'm still kind of confused on it, so I would prefer a full presentation from you.
No problem.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
I still have a visual on my screen. Okay. Okay, so let's begin here. So, good afternoon, Councilwoman Janik, Commissioner Gonzalez, and members of the board. I'm Meredith Tessier with the Planning Department, and the case before you today is Desert Foothills Lutheran Church, 8DR 2022. The subject site is located just north of East Via Donna Road, along the east side of North Scottsdale Road, as outlined in yellow. Before you is a close-up aerial of the subject site with surrounding uses that include residential to the east, south, and west, as well as an existing church to the north. Today, the applicant's requesting Development Review Board approval for an approximate 26,000 square foot addition to the existing church campus. You can see on this site plan the highlighted areas of what's going to be the addition to the sanctuary buildings, as well as the new worship center, and I think it's called the Life Center on the south side of the site plan. Sorry, I just can't see it from my screen right now. Here we have the landscape plan, which depicts native plantings throughout the site, including some revegetation in areas of NEOS, as well as within the new proposed parking stalls and spaces on the south side of the site. Next are a series of building elevations. Here we have Building E, which is the new worship center. Building D, which is the new family center. And lastly, Building A, which is the addition to the sanctuary. Again, these all conform with the ESL overlay district LRVs and paint colors, as well as the Scottsdale sensitive design principles. So I'll conclude my presentation with this perspective slide. The applicant is here and has a full presentation which does go through that phasing plan. They have questions for Brand, and then staff's available after the the applicant's presentation for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Meredith? We good? Okay. The development team? And again, please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Steve Bardusin from Bardusin Architects. It's 3702 East Kachina Drive in Phoenix. and I have the privilege of walking you through a few of the slides. For us as architects, to be able to work on a virgin desert site in North Scottsdale is a huge privilege. And so what we tried to do from the beginning was to select materials and designs and even the layout of the parking and whatnot to maintain as much of what makes North Scottsdale, including working around existing saguaros and all the good stuff. So I'll go ahead and see if I can work this. This is the overall site plan that Meredith has shown you. I will show you a little more of an enlarged plan. This is for Board Member Brand specifically, but for any of the rest of you as well. This is a colorized version. You can see that there's 3 existing buildings that are on site. The one to the top of the page is the existing sanctuary and offices. To the right of this is north. Sorry, I didn't orient you. To the right is north, so the top of the page is Scottsdale Road. So we're kind of 90 degrees because of the site. But that's the existing sanctuary. To the south, or to the, I guess it'd be southwest of that is the L-shaped building. That's a preschool that they currently operate. It's only used for the preschool. It's not used for the church, by the church on Sundays. And then the gray box on the bottom is the existing fellowship hall, but it's really where they currently do the contemporary service, and the traditional service is done up in the traditional sanctuary. So those 3 gray areas are the existing buildings. The purpose is they want to be able to build for the next generation, especially with children. And so to the left of the existing sanctuary along Scottsdale Road is the new contemporary worship venue. So this is obviously a contemporary setting of the building as well, and it's combined by a lobby. So there's going to be one continuous lobby that flows from the traditional over to the contemporary, so they can feel as one church. This is not a mega church. This is a small Lutheran church that wants to be able to have 2 different types of services. Each service currently has, I'm going to guess, in the vicinity of 120 to 150 people. So it's not this isn't a huge mega church. And so in the rust, you see some of those buildings that are being proposed. So first, to the left, we mentioned the contemporary worship service venue. And then in between them, there's a little rust section, and that would be the replacement of the offices and a choir practice kind of area and classrooms for the youngest children. So that's what that area is. And then in the ultimate, in a later phase, to the right of the existing sanctuary is a official formal choir practice room. So that would be for their choir. To the south, to the east is the big box. That is a family life center, and that would be a future phase down the road. Obviously, they don't have the funds right now, but that would include a gymnasium for the community. That would include the administrative offices and some of the youth, like a youth room. And it also will have community classrooms for all the AA and all the different community groups that currently use the campus would be able to have their own rooms. So that's just a quick, maybe not quick, but that's an oversight of what's existing versus what is new. But I also put on there for the site what's new and existing. So everything on the right side is basically existing, and everything to the left, including the courtyard, would be new. Because of what you'll hear later today with the City of Scottsdale's Scottsdale Road improvements, we have been asked to move our entrance from where you see it in gray up at the top and moving it to the south, which is to the left, so that we can have a pull in from left in, left out, as well as a right in, right out. So that we're doing all that brand new. So basically, the site work is pretty easy. Everything to the right, or most everything to the right, is the existing, and everything to the left is new. And I'll quickly flip over to here. This is the phasing plan. Again, because the site work is important here, I went ahead and showed the proposed new parking lot also. So the darkest color is phase 1. So that would be the access from Scottsdale Road around the new area connecting up to the old parking lot. You see that the worship center itself, the contemporary worship center, is in phase 1. And then we have a little bit of cleaning up to do from where the church was trying to do some sport courts and bladed some areas, so we need to go back in and fix those up. So that's what you see there. And then up on the upper right that's where we're installing a new 3-foot screen wall, because that wasn't put in the original 1993 application, and providing the 5-foot sidewalk or 6-foot sidewalk coming onto campus. That's the new requirement. So that's kind of how it made up. And then the middle one is basically phase 2, and the lightest is phase 3, which, like I said, that's down the road quite a bit. And I think I'll just finish this up, and then we can come back to this. This is a shot to show you the difference between, on the left is the traditional sanctuary. We'll be painting it the same color as the new work. So all of the buildings will be painted to match the new buildings. And so on the bottom is that painting. It came out a little dark. I'm sorry about that, especially for Board Member Mason, I believe. It's just the rendering came out. We do have the boards here if you'd like to see the paint color. We did actually lighten it for the staff's recommendation as well. It just, when it printed a little dark. Let's see here. The second that's the contemporary building that you saw in 3D. And this is the Family Life Center, which is the very back of the property. I believe, yeah, that's the shot of, so you can kind of see the proposed work. Again, because of the shading, it looks darker there. It's just the camera work. That's the same color as the building behind it, which is the traditional existing sanctuary. Those are the real plants. That's really what it looks like. It'll be very much set into the natural desert environment. That's it. Questions?
Questions?
No, I'll just briefly statement and maybe a question comes out of it. I appreciate the presentation. I think from just explanatory when we're reviewing the package, the colored site plan actually really helped out, because there's pieces and parts of the existing that are bridging the two that it was like, I was looking at the aerial and the existing, I was like, I can't figure out what is new and what's not. So that really helped, and it cleared up. And also on the elevations you had paint colors, so it looked like there was work being done on the existing. Anyway, it was kind of hard to decipher what was. So appreciate that. Certainly that, and then understanding the phasing, it also looked like the new sport court or the new indoor gym facility, their youth facility is down the road. And the courtyard itself, kind of out at the intro, you're doing the parking lot and the new worship center. The courtyard, is that a kind of a phase 1A, or is that going to be in good enough shape? I'm just curious about what your take is on the courtyard piece then.
Yeah, I'm smiling because, man, you're way ahead of everybody here, because we put it into phase 2 for the sake of the presentation. Obviously, this is a pretty complicated, because we're touching all the different areas of the campus, and so it was really hard to try to figure out how to explain it. And we've been asked to to go back and meet the requirements of the new IGCC Green Building Code, and the cost of that is such that we probably won't be able to do the courtyard. It's a 1A, but at this point, we don't have the funds to be able to do that.
Okay.
Those will have to be directed to the Green Building Initiative.
No, that I'm sure that your congregation may, if it's, hopefully it's in enough of a state that it's not kind of a staging area and then it just kind of hangs out that way because it's right at the front doorstep.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
I will just say that just from, I did review all the buildings and the design work, and it's my understanding that we're going to be approving on a DR standpoint both the new worship center and the elevations for the, I believe it's the youth facility too that's included in here. So it is approving both phases to potentially go into documentation and get built at a future phase. I appreciate it. I think that the architecture design in the new worship facility is both complementary to the existing facility and is different enough with respect to the low-lying topography of the desert. I think it fits in great. From an aesthetic standpoint, materials, and just how it's planned, I think it's a really successful project. And kudos to yourself or your design team responsible and the church congregation for putting forward a lightly touched desert project. So I appreciate it, and I don't have any other further questions.
Thank you. Do we have? Yes, Mr. Mason.
If you have the color samples, I would just like to take a look at them.
That's exactly what I was headed to do, is to show you those colors.
Commissioner Gonzalez, do you have any additional questions? Okay. Well,
Anything else for me, or do you want me to stay?
yeah, I guess go ahead.
When I was looking at some aerial views on this 2 or 3 years ago, and then I noticed the non-disturbable area that was, I guess they were going to put, what were they going to do with that area? Because I noticed they swapped in a lot of removal or something on that area, and it kind of irritated me a little bit about it 2 years ago, and I see that nothing's really changed. How come they haven't changed it? You know, I mean, if they knew they were going to come in front of the boards and stuff like that, they should have been able to change this non-disturbable area and revegetate it without us having to come up here and say, you need to do that. So I guess that's my main concern. I know that's not a DR thing, but you know, I've been watching this exercise for a couple of years now, and you know, I don't see a lot of working with the city on this at all. So that was my first concern. And my second concern is that is there enough shading provided on this campus now so that it's more walkable as far as that? Because when I was first looked at this project a couple of years ago, the shading was kind of negligible except for the main building. So have they taken into effect providing some shading in these areas, some cantilevers or something of that sort?
Yeah, Commissioner Gonzalez. So the first one is that the sport court company had started the construction without consulting with the city, and so they had bladed it ahead of time before we came on board. And so we stopped that and said that we would, you know, we need to get this all into our application. The application has just taken us a little bit longer than we expected, but the intent all along was to make sure that we revegetate. The largest area that's been disturbed is going to be the location for the sport court, but it's, again, it's been bladed, and it will have the cool pavement and wall, you know, enclosed walls, and it'll be fully compliant. But the other area that was bladed, in addition to it, will be revegetated in this first phase. Bring that back up. With respect to the shading, yes, the courtyard's actually, we call it a cloister, hearkening back to an earlier era. And so we have a full 12-foot wide covered walkway that goes all the way around the three sides of the cloister. And even within the cloister area itself, we have large fabric canopy shading devices inside the cloister itself.
Is there any plans to have any kind of a outdoor venue or anything outside there?
Not unless it's just a gathering of the church, but obviously with the ESLO, there's no amplified sound that's allowed. So it would just be a gathering of, I'm sure there'll be gathering after every service, obviously, but even then there might be special events, but again, compliant with the North Scottsdale requirements.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Do we have any additional questions? Mr. Faki, do you have any questions? I'm guessing.
I'm good from my side.
Okay, thank you. I guess then we can proceed.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Great. I'll move to approve case 8-DR-2022 per the staff recommended stipulations after finding that the development applications meet the applicable development review board criteria.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Janik?
Yes.
Vice Chair Joyner?
Yes.
Board Member Brand?
Yes.
Board Member Peaser?
Yes.
Board Member Faki?
Yes.
Board Member Mason?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. And I know it's been a long journey because I met with you quite a while ago on this, and we've had communication. So good luck with your progress in your project. Thanks.
And we got through that case without pickleball being mentioned once.
Okay, let's move on then to the regular agenda. 1DR 2024 Scottsdale Road improvements, Jomax Road to Dixoletta Drive. And we have a staff presentation.
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman
Thank you.
Janik, members of the Development Review Board. This is case 1DR 2024. Again, it's the Scottsdale Road landscaping for a capital project that's between Jomax and Dixoletta. The request is for approval of only landscaping and walls that is a couple pony walls that are associated with the Scottsdale Capitol Road improvement project between Jomax and Dixoletta. The design has been underway since about 2020 and is now at 100% design and is projected to start construction probably in June of this year and wrap up hopefully by February of 2026. The capital improvement project does include improvements to Scottsdale Road in the addition to a roundabout that's proposed at Dynamite Boulevard. However, the roundabout, whether or not a roundabout occurs with this project is not up for debate. Today, it's strictly the landscaping. The City Council does have a policy on roundabouts. It was adopted back with the Transportation Master Plan in 2016 to do roundabout first and signalize second, depending on if it works or not. So again, the project is between Jomax and Dixoletta. It's a 2-mile stretch of Scottsdale Road. And now I'd like to call up Jeff Velasquez from J2 Engineering and Environmental Design, who's the city's consultant on the landscape improvement plans. Be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions yet? No?
Do you have public comments? I believe, may I just?
At what
Madam
point should
Chairman.
we do the public comments after?
Correct, Councilwoman Janik. I believe the applicant still has a little bit more to discuss with you, and then after that, we can do the public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, members of the board, for having us. My name is Jeff Velasquez. I'm a principal landscape architect with J2 Design, 4649 East Cotton Gin Loop in Phoenix. Happy to be here. So what we're going to do is kind of walk through a few slides here, talking about some of the detail of the landscape and the native seed mix that is going on, aesthetics from Jomax to Dixilita, 2-mile corridor going through improvements with a roundabout in the middle there. With me is Maria Rios, our lead designer, and she's going to step through some of the detail of these slides as she's been on this project for several years. There you go.
Thank you. So again, looking at the project limits, north being on the right of this screen from Jomax Road along Scottsdale Road up to Dixiletta Drive with a new roundabout at Dynamite Boulevard. And then now we'll get into the landscape design a little bit more here in the next couple slides. This slide here shows a typical plan and section along Scottsdale Road. In the middle will be a landscaped median with new and salvaged trees and cacti, as well as accent planting and boulders. And in this median will also be a small swale for visual interest, as well as to collect any rainwater that falls within the median to help the plants thrive during storm seasons. And then between the roadway and the sidewalk and multi-use path, there is a landscaped area. And this landscape area will be with a seed mix. And this specific seed mix for this area will only include plant material that does not exceed 18 inches in height for visibility of any roadway signage, as well as safety for pedestrians. Beyond the sidewalk and multi-use path, will be heavily focused on restoration areas. So majority of the existing trees and cacti along this corridor will be salvaged and replanted in these areas. And in addition to that, another native seed mix will be utilized in this area to maintain the plant palette and aesthetic that is currently out there now. And this next slide shows a plan of the roundabout at Dynamite Boulevard. So in the middle of this traffic circle will be landscaped with salvaged trees and cacti, so saguaros, barrel cacti, ocotillo, as well as some flowering ground cover and accent plants and boulders. This will be mounded up a little bit to add a visual interest and element within this roadway. And then around the traffic circle in those landscaped medians will be plant material that, again, does not exceed 18 inches in height to maintain clear sight visibility in this area for safety. And lastly, here is some imagery of some of the plant material we will be utilizing on this project. Some trees, shrubs, ground cover, as well as accents. In addition, it might be a little hard to read on the big screen, but are the two types of seed mixes that will be utilized on this project. The one on the left is a little shorter because that is the seed mix that will be utilized between the roadway and sidewalk and path for plant material not to exceed 18 inches in height, as well as the other plant seed mix that will be for plant material to restore the areas to the native aesthetic. Again, this landscape design complies with the city's scenic corridor guidelines in this area, as well as low water use plant material. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Do we have any questions from council? Yes, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. On the shrubs and the landscaping that's going in the middle part here, is it sprinkled, or is the city maintain it for a couple of years with hand watering and then just letting it go natural, or what's what is your guideline for that plant material?
Yes, so all of the irrigation design along this corridor does have the ability to be turned off if the city would like to, once it is established, if they feel at a point that it can survive without irrigation, they will be able to turn it off.
Do you have any idea or water plan that you've developed on the usage of the water for this project?
Yes, Commissioner. We do have water calculations that we develop with every project. We don't have those readily available right now, but we can get those to you in your hand through staff.
Well, I'm probably not good enough to even know what the difference would be, but have you passed this along with the water department as far as the usage?
That I'd have to check with staff. I'm filling in for someone who just retired from our firm, but we can certainly verify with staff that that's been passed along. But it's all within the low water use approved ADWR plant lists and within the scenic corridor guidelines, all the plant materials.
Yeah, I understand about the plant materials. It's just the water usage is one thing that, I always like to get Mr. Biesmeyer or somebody to say, yes, it's calculated in or whatever they say, but I definitely like to see some sort of usage put in perspective as far as what that is.
Absolutely. We can follow up with that.
Councilwoman Janik, Board Member Gonzalez, the landscaping that's going to be in here will be on drip initially until it's established because it's all a native palette, and then it will be turned off just like any other native area. So it should not be an issue with water resources.
Thank you very much.
Are you comfortable with that?
Madam Chairman?
Am I
I'm sorry.
comfortable about it? No, I'm not totally comfortable about it because unless I see specifics on it, I really don't have any idea what's going on. But I am familiar with the way that the city has managed other venues like this. And of course, this is a lot bigger project than most of them that I've seen done. And I just don't, I just want to make sure that the water department signs off on it because, when we have to look at these things, we're making all the developers come up with the issue. And I just like to see that, the calculations have been made and, and passed muster. Thank you.
Councilman Janik?
Yes.
I just want to reiterate a conversation I had with Frank this morning, that construction will not start until Pima Road is finished. Is that correct on the roundabout?
Thank you for that question. I'm Derek Rogers.
Oh, sorry.
I talked to you earlier.
Okay.
I am the senior project manager on this project for the city of Scottsdale. This, for water usage, is in line with what is currently happening. And Scott Mars and Brian know about this project, and they have seen all of our calculations and it's congruent with what's happening now, and it will diminish, as they say, as it goes on in time when we can turn these sprinklers off, if that's warranted. I forgot your question.
I just wanted to make sure that our conversation this morning about traffic and residents living in the area were already hampered by Pima Road, and you had indicated that construction wouldn't start on the roundabout until Pima Road was open. Is that, I
Correct.
just want that on the record.
Yes, that is correct. The Pima Road project is scheduled to be done in June.
Perfect.
We are dovetailing this project to not start until that project is complete and out of the way because of the 3 corridors, Pima, Hayden, Scottsdale, that we want to only be working on one at a time.
Thank you. We
Yep.
appreciate that. And then if you would just reiterate again what is being done on the northeast corner where the land has been disturbed. Is that a parking area or what is that? What is happening there? Because nothing's being built there that I understand, but yet it's been raised.
So thank you for that question. To diminish the traffic impacts on Scottsdale Road, which we've seen in earlier projects, we are trying to get out ahead of utility work. And what's happening right now is we're putting the pedestals of ultimate condition utilities in now while traffic is invisible to that impedance. And so once there's one on the northeast corner, there's 3 on the southwest corner.
Southwest,
and
right.
then there's another one on the northwest corner.
Okay.
Northwest, northeast, 3 on the southwest. And those are all the utilities, blue tabs for ultimate condition that
Thank
we're
you.
trying to get.
And I am a huge fan of the roundabout, so
Thank you.
I am excited to see it. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just wanted to comment, I really appreciate that you are aware that we don't want anything higher than 18 inches to obstruct the views, because people tend to go very fast. So we want to have as much view quarter as we can, so thank you. And any other questions, comments? Okay, we have 2 people who've asked to speak publicly. Yeah, you 2 can sit down, and
My question is, do you have
are you Mr. Burbay? Okay, Mr. Eder? Okay, and then, thank you. So just state your name and address, and then we can discuss your questions. Thank you.
Okay. My name's Glenn Eder. I live at 6856 East Bob White Way in Scottsdale Vista Estates. And my question was for the landscaping is, do they have a slide that shows the median, landscape median between Dynamite and Dixoletta? Because we didn't see it, and my question would be, right now we have 2 lanes in each direction with a median lane that we use for left turning, because going north, because out of Scottsdale Vista Estates, there's only 1 way in and 1 way out. So does the landscape median go all the way to Dixoletta? And in order to do that, they would have to widen the road on one side or the other to have a landscape median and a left turn lane for people going north out of Scottsdale Vista Estates.
Okay, understood. Do we have someone who can answer that question?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know what sheet it is, but there's a roundabout.
It's further north. It's going to be just north of the church entrance on the east side.
Okay, here's Via Donna. There's Bob White. Is that the slide you were looking to see?
So we're going to be directly across from the church's new entrance? Okay.
It might be further north. There's Morning Vista. And Dixoletta, so it's one of these slides here.
So, sir, your question was, how does the landscape interface in the median at the turn lane? Okay.
In other words, my concern was that median lane that everybody would use, northbound and southbound, we're actually going to have a safer place to turn left into and a safer place to turn left out of. So if you could just reiterate what he's saying, because we can't hear him.
Okay. Both he's saying. So yes, to reiterate, just so everybody can hear, it looks like at the middle part of the slide showing at the intersection, the left turn lanes going both ways, that is what you're looking at to make sure that that's improved for safety in the turn value, correct? Okay.
Okay, you comfortable with the answer? Okay, thank you very much. And then we have Mr. Burbay, who would like to ask a few questions as well.
I'm Gene Burby. I live at 6802 East Bob White Way. And we, of course, are using the same entrance and for egress and exiting. And what you're showing as a left turn lane is about adequate for 1 car, it looks like. That will never service that entrance. You know, that's, in addition to that, I'm concerned about the safety of the Lutheran Church in ingress and egress. You got 300 cars or 300 parishioners going in there. and it's a school. I'm really concerned about the safety of removing a stoplight. The stoplight right now gives you a break in the traffic so you can get it in and out. Remove the stoplight, put in the roundabout, you have continuous traffic. So I'm really concerned about the safety that you're providing for this neighborhood and the church.
Do we have anybody that would like to respond to that on staff?
Councilwoman,
I accept
we're not
that.
agendas for the traffic safety or the design of the roadway. We're here to discuss the landscaping, and so it's kind of hard to get too far afield into that.
Okay. Okay.
We're just not agendas for that.
Okay, so then we should take this up with Transportation Department. And I do realize this is a concern because when there's a roundabout, there is no break in traffic. And that means it is very difficult to make a left-hand turn. So we have a church and a neighborhood, both where people will be making left-hand turns. So I just kind of wanted to mention that so we can kind of advise transportation that I would appreciate it if they would look at it again. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay. Then I think we are ready to take a motion and vote on 1DR 2024 Scottsdale Road Improvements, Joe Max Road to Dixaletta Drive.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve 1DR 2024. Move to approve the case per the staff recommended stipulations after finding that the development application meets the Development Review Board criteria.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second, and we will do a roll call.
Councilwoman Janik,
Approve, yes.
Vice Chair Joyner,
Yes.
Board Member Brand,
Yes.
Board Member Peaser,
Yes.
Board Member Faki,
Yes.
Board Member Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to the non-action item, number 9, 276 SA 2023 Marshall Way Plaza renovations. And it's a request for discussion and feedback regarding a proposed renovation to an existing commercial building at 4151 North Marshall Way, including new columns, shade canopies, sidewalk improvements. And Katie Pussler will be doing the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioner, Vice Chair, and board members. My name is Katie Pussler, and I'm here to present case 276 SA 2023, which is the Marshall Way Plaza renovations. And this is a non-action item, so it's here for your feedback and discussion. The site is located north of Indian School Road and west of Scottsdale Road within the downtown boundary. And you can see our location in the kiva in the bottom right corner, but the site is in yellow. Here's a closer look at the property. It's south of East 3rd Avenue and east of North Marshall Way. To the north, west, and south are existing commercial buildings, and to the east is the Kimsey development, and that hotel is actually under construction. The request in front of you is for discussion and feedback regarding proposed renovations to an existing commercial building at 4151 North Marshall Way. The scope includes new columns, shade canopies, and sidewalk improvements. Here's the proposed site plan. North is on the right side of the screen for your orientation. And in red are the new shade canopies, and in black are the existing shade canopies. There will be new columns along these shade canopies, and in gray is the new sidewalk. If you were able to visit the site, the existing sidewalk is pretty thin. It's maybe 5 feet wide, and these new shade canopies and columns will allow that existing sidewalk to be replaced with an 8-foot sidewalk. So that should help with pedestrian connectivity. As well as the shell space, if you see that language, that corner suite will be increased in building height. So starting at the corner, on the top is the existing improvements, and on the bottom is the proposed perspectives. So the applicant is proposing to remove that portico and replace it with that black and gold metal shade canopy, as well as 2 porcelain tile blade walls on either side. And you can also see the increase in height for that corner suite. Some additional items to note is the entire building is being repainted to the color Thick Fog, which has an LRV of 61. It is a lighter gray color, but I'll show you some photos for the context of the area in a minute, and it seems to match those other existing improvements. This is the north elevation. So you can see on the end cap, the applicant will be using mosaic tiles along there. And you can also see the new curved canopy that has charred wood underneath. Then are the addition of the blade walls with the gold canopy and then a gray trim along the existing canopy. If you can see the gold beams that are further right on the bottom image, that's what I was referring to in terms of the sidewalk will be able to be increased since the existing columns are pretty thick, so they eat into the existing sidewalk. This is the west elevation along Marshall Way. So you can again see those mosaic tiles on the end piece, the new curved canopy, and blade walls. And I should note that behind this portion of the building is the parking lot, and the entire building will be repainted to that color. So the entire building will receive that treatment. So directly north and northwest, those buildings were recently renovated with also new canopies that have those thinner beams, as well as the lighter paint colors. And then you can also see the building directly west for context. That concludes staff presentation, but the applicant is also here to present, and we're both here to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions at this point? Okay, let's move on with the applicant presentation. And again, state your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Brian Kroeb from Align Architecture Concepts. My address is 6519 East Oak Street, Scottsdale. So this, I think that Katie did a good job of kind of giving the overview of everything that we've intended to do. Essentially, the overall idea is to keep the building intact. So we're not increasing area. It's the same kind of footprint. It's really just how it interacts with the street. So the majority of the project is on the north and on the west, and then sort of wrapping around to the south and wrapping around to the east on either end to relate to the new hotel, as well as to kind of Indian school. We're basically dividing into kind of 3 zones, which is the corner element, which is our new sort of anchor. The 2 end caps are to basically stand in kind of unison with the rest of the building, but also have their own kind of unique stature in the entire composition. And then this kind of center area to the west will remain as is. So there's, we're keeping the windows, we're keeping the kind of the majority of what's happening there. So on the end caps, we have new steel windows that are happening, so they're sort of larger open areas using steel windows. Steel windows are also happening on the corner, but what we've done in that respect is we're increasing the ceiling height to 14 feet. So in doing that, we're raising the parapet height accordingly so that we have what we need to accommodate that. And then the windows also extend to that height to basically give the anchor space that kind of hierarchy that we're after. The idea of the 3 canopy, the 3 pergola entries is that they are, right now they have that arch and kind of the roof over them. We're basically simplifying them into these blade walls that take down the hierarchy so that they're not perceived as entrances, and that they're just sort of breaking up the composition across both the west and the north. So materiality, we basically talked about, or Katie talked about the blade walls. So this is it's a porcelain tile that has a kind of a bead, kind of rib texture on it, done in a vertical running bond pattern. The charred wood is used for the soffits at the end caps to give a warmth to the underside as you're walking through, kind of bring wood down to the human scale, but then also to using wood to kind of create that warmth in those areas. The stucco areas, so basically the parapets above, we have a contrast at the corners where we do have a color of a darker color of stucco above the parapet, and then the lighter is kind of the main parapet, and then the bulk of the building is this sort of lighter color. And then our accents, so basically right now there's a series of, and I'll kind of go to the next slide, there's a series of these heavy kind of pyramidal columns. And so basically the heaviness is what we're trying to address here. And so we're losing those large scale columns to introduce new lighter scale columns, and then introducing also that brass color to kind of bring more of an accent to the overall composition. And then and as we noted here, like each sort of zone is really about how it reacts to the street and kind of bringing new life to the center. If you have a few questions or comments, let me know.
Questions?
Question number one for Ms. Posler. What area does this lie in within the character area guidelines of Old Town? I know that there's a historic Old Town district, which is, I believe, south of Indian School. Is that correct? Or which guideline district are we in from an Old Town perspective?
Councilwoman Janik, Board Member Brand, this falls outside of the historic area, which is, again, as you mentioned, south of Indian School, east of Scottsdale Road. But this is within the overall overarching Old Town design guidelines. So we would look to those broad guidelines for guidance on those.
For the architect, do you want to talk a little bit about the compliance and because I think clearly it's pretty easy from the images to say that this is a step outside of some of the historical context of this district in here with kind of the predominant gestures of kind of the remnants of Old Town in this area. What was the thought going on as far as compliance to the character area that you're within?
Sure. I mean, the character of, I know, being Main Street and Marshall Way are kind of the conduit through Old Town and being important. The way that we are treating this is that we are maintaining the arcades to try to really maintain that idea of the pedestrian kind of connection, and that we're still being able to kind of pass through and really address that. The overall look and the style is about, in its regards to the context of this particular street where, there's a series of art galleries, lots of sort of full height, undivided glass. I mean, there's a lot of sort of more modern examples to the north of this building, all the way to the kind of the roundabout, the horse roundabout, and then to Indian School. So this is actually in very much keeping with the style of this particular zone between Indian School and basically the canal. So it's really just more addressed to that aspect of it than this quadrant that we're in, which is the Old Town quadrant.
Yeah, I'm down there a lot, and I would, just from an opinion standpoint, I would respectfully disagree that this is something that's totally in character with what's going on down there. I look at the gestures that you've done here, and I think it's, I really, by the way, I know Align is your guys' firm. I think you guys do fantastic work, so I appreciate your design expertise. I think the place, there's a little bit of an Art Deco kind of feel to this building, I think, with the rounded corner and the arched, sort of where the arches are located. And I think that sort of, the placement of the Art Deco-ish feel, just, I can't get, like, it just feels out of place from an Old Town gesture. It feels like it's, from a design standpoint, it's trying to bring probably too much attention to itself from an Old Town context, and that I believe that a lot of the look and the feel and what's magical about Old Town is that there's not a lot of object sort of buildings that are calling attention to itself. It's really focused on the pedestrian realm. I think there's a couple other things is I feel like your elevations on this building and the material palette is good, and it's not, for me, it's not translating great to the 3D images. I don't think the 3D images really represent what you guys are doing as well as maybe some of the 2D drawings. In particular, the canopy on this corner doesn't look nearly as deep as what is shown in your plan or your roof plan. I think it's probably the angle of the perspective and the thinness of the canopy. It appears to be like a 4 foot deep from here, and then on the plan it appears to be 10 to 12 feet deep. So there's things that maybe aren't translating in some of these images, but I would also say just in general, I think that there's ways of thinning out the column. To me, the plaster in Old Town and the stucco and eaves that's around a lot of places, and the color program with them, with those materials as they're represented today, has more of a natural tone feeling of natural materials, even though I wouldn't really consider stucco a natural material. I guess plaster is, but you know, this building is predominantly stucco, again, how it's being represented here. I would just love to see more what I would call natural materials. I think that there's an opportunity for, if you're replacing with inner columns, to do you know, something that has more of an exposed steel, or with great, you know, I think of like blackened steel and wood deck on the underside. Is, I know it's a totally different palette from what you guys are shooting at here, but something that has more warmth and natural tone to it. And anyway, I think just the thing that's throwing me off about this, that seems detached from the Old Town context, is really kind of the curved facade gestures on the corners. It just, and I think actually even the walls that are coming out on the corner, I understand the need to break up the facade. I like the idea of breaking out the facade, but it also is necking down. And it also is something on the model that feels like the opening that you have on the plan is actually deeper than what's represented in the model. It feels like the model's got like about maybe a 5 to 6 foot wide opening, but in the plan it looks like it's at the 8 foot. So maybe there's how I'm reading the model, or the 3D shots is a little bit off. But again, I think it's from a visibility standpoint. I think about the streetscape and the pedestrian walkability, and that sort of way that you're cutting off the view corridor down that pedestrian way is a little bit of a public safety issue with the wing wall. But also, I don't know that it's from a financial standpoint for the ownership that it's doing a lot of favors, because it cuts down visibility of cross tenancy and visibility of blade signs possibly, and other tenants that are in the glazed sidewalk there. You're creating vision blockage for some of the pedestrians there. But since this is a non-action, feel free to or you could, you know, I'm just giving some opinions just because I've done a lot of retail work and it's all I've done for 25 years, but this is, I think there's a lot to go here, but I am, just in general, I'm struggling with how the overall language does sort of fit. I don't think that everything needs to look the same, but I think that this may be taking it too far of a step outside of that box to feel comfortable with. So, but I appreciate the presentation and the work that you guys have put in there.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Joyner.
I agree with him 100%, and I'm not going to try to out-eloquent him because he's expert at this. I don't like the white and the gold. I think it's just too stark from, and again, I echo everything he said, but I don't like the white and the gold. I don't like the handling of the corner. I think it's just, it doesn't look like it belongs in Scottsdale. So that's my comment.
Yes, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with it. The color palette to me is not what I'd call warm and fuzzy for that area at all. I don't particularly care, I do a lot of buildings in white, and that looks usually pretty good, but here it stands out and it makes more of a white elephant design to me on it. So that's why I think with the coloration and the thickness of the entrances and those wing walls, it tries to make it look contemporary, yet, the function of that area there is more of a Western, kind of a neutral, natural styling. I think that's probably what's really missed here. Like Jeff said, that, we don't have to all go contemporary, we don't have to go all Southwestern, but because of the local surroundings in there, and I'm very familiar with that area, I think it just, that building would just overshadow everything else that area is conducive for. And so that's my 2 cents, is basically that it just stands out too much. I will commend you, though. I like the way you're changing out the view corridor as far as the overhangs and stuff like that, creating a wider pathway, an 8-foot cement way, instead of how that narrowness was developed in there. You're alleviating a lot of the thickness of the old building by going into the smaller columns and everything. I think that transition works real well. It's just the color palette, and maybe the other thing that I wasn't crazy about is the masonry look of it. You mentioned that there was going to be some ceramics in there and stuff. The mixture to me is just too foreign to me for that general area. And that's just my comments. A lot of it's, a personal comment, but yet we want it to be able to integrate with the area. So,
can you bring up you had some photos of the surrounding buildings. I'm on Google Earth moving around here on my phone. I think that's important to see.
I think that was part of Katie's presentation.
Oh, that was part of Katie's, the staff. Also, it may help you on your renderings and elevations. There are significant trees in that area too. I think that's probably part of the presentation that doesn't do too many favors, is that a lot of the opacity of the trees is pulled down, and so you're sort of showing us the design of the building, but in actuality there's a pretty significant tree presence, street tree presence on that street, which we're not seeing in these, and so it sort of just jumps the building out versus the existing photos.
Yeah, it's that balance when doing renderings of what are you trying to show, because
right.
The trees are there and they're actually a lot taller than the building, and we're not growing the building other than the corner, so it's, but.
I think is it the next slide that's got the?
It's the very last slide, I think.
This one, okay. So the northwest, so that's, that one to the bottom left must have just opened up then. And then the one to the, okay.
So it is using that idea of kind of the lighter, slender columns, the low profile shade canopies, the lighter color bodies.
I'm seeing this, and when I look at these buildings, I see, first of all, they're fairly nondescript in a lot of ways, but I feel like even the gesture of the canopy is a little bit more mid-century-ish. It's got a little bit of a nod towards mid-century, sure, with a doubled pole and kind of the thin line canopy versus what feels a little bit more deco-ish, which are kind of two different avenues, which I think mid-century has appeal, a little bit more native appeal out here, whereas that's probably the contrast with some of the deco feeling element. So, sorry, I'll leave somebody else.
Anybody else? Any comments? No?
I have one question.
I'm sorry, Ali.
No worries, thank you. The one thing I would like to see on this is probably just a plan that shows the Kimsey on the east side with all the future improvement going on there. hardscape or whatnot, because there is a lot of hardscape going on in this alley. I'm just curious to see how those two projects tie together.
And kind of an elevation maybe along the north face, if you're looking for context. You know, the Kimsey is a really contemporary looking buildings on the north facade that they may also, as far as telling the story of how this fits in, it's a pretty important piece. If it's possible to even get a hold of that, maybe on public record, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get a hold of that.
Okay. Mr. Faki, any other comments, questions?
No, I think this will help me a little bit to visualize the connection, so thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. All right, are we good? Okay, well, thank you. You have enough food for thought.
Thank you.
Thanks. With that being said, we can adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second. Thank you. Roll call. Oh, we don't? Okay. We do on council. Okay. All right, thanks.
Especially compared to the old ones. Yeah, it's a big shift. Maybe we should just leave it.